The mahogany room smelled like old money and very much older secrets. Mr. Harcourt, Dad's attorney of 30 years, had just finished reading the last clause. Therefore, I bequeath the entirety of my estate, including Hartley Construction, the 3 residential properties, and all investment accounts, to my daughter, Emily Hartley. Silence. Then Linda's chair scraped back so violently it toppled. This is a mistake. Her voice started low, almost reasonable. Then the shriek. His dementia, you knew about his dementia, didn't you, Emily? He must have signed the wrong paper. I didn't move, didn't blink. That was the trick I learned at 12 when she first come into our lives. Never give them the satisfaction of seeing you crack. But inside, my ribs were splintering. The room fractured into hostile islands. My cousin Marcus caught my eye and mouthed, Jesus, my Aunt Cheryl buried her face in her hands. Even Harcourt's assistant, a girl barely out of college, looked at me like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe. Linda's twin sons, Derek and Darren, were already on their phones. My pocket buzzed. Derek's text. You're going to pay for this, bitch. Another buzz, Darren. Enjoy it while it lasts. But let me back up. Because 3 days earlier I'd been a different person. Dad's funeral was a Tuesday. The kind of day where the sky commits to nothing, neither rain nor sun, just gray inertia. Linda had orchestrated every detail, right down to the lilac she knew made me sneeze. She'd clutched my arm at the graveside, those perfect mascara tears rolling down, and whispered to the photographer she'd hired, just a few more capture the family unity. I stood there, hollowed out, letting her use my grief as a prop. That night she sent me a text, not condolences. A to-do list, cancel the hospice nurse, list the lake house, schedule estate sale. She'd already started selling his things online. I found his favorite fishing rod on Facebook Marketplace at 2 a.m. while I was staring at the ceiling. By Wednesday, she'd changed the locks on the family home, the one Dad built with my mom before the cancer took her. I drove there with a bag of his old clothes, and the key wouldn't turn. Derek opened the door, smirking. Mom says you're not family enough to have a key anymore. Thursday. Linda posted on Facebook, heartbroken to discover elder manipulation in my late husband's final days. Grateful for my boys who stand by truth. The comments flooded in. So sorry, Linda, some people have no shame. My phone started ringing, old family friends, distant relatives, all asking why I'd stolen from a grieving widow. My boss pulled me aside. Maybe take a few days. Their single quotes I'd gone from grieving daughter to family pariah in 72 hours, and the worst part of me believed her. Maybe Dad had been confused. Maybe I was the monster they said I was. I sat in my apartment Thursday night, surrounded by Dad's old blueprints, and wondered if I'd hallucinated our entire relationship. The will in my bag felt radioactive. I'd folded it into thirds like a letter you never intend to send. Every time I touched it, I saw Linda's face, that marble statue stillness before the eruption. I knew that look. It was the same one she'd given me at 16 when Dad had given me Mama's engagement ring for safekeeping. She'd stared at my hand like she wanted to bite the finger off. So I did what I'd always done. I went quiet. I didn't defend myself on Facebook. I didn't text Derek back. I just waited. Silent strength feels like weakness in the moment. It feels like swallowing glass while everyone watches you choke. But it's the only weapon you have when the world has already decided you're guilty. That night, after the lawyer's office, after the texts, after I draped a blanket over my windows to block out the streetlights, I clawed through Dad's old briefcase. I'd grabbed it from the house during the funeral. Inside the main pocket, nothing. But my fingers caught a rusted zipper I still didn't know was there. Inside, a tiny brass key. The label, written in Dad's careful architect's hand, had faded to almost nothing. *basement-1987. And I knew exactly where it led. The workshop. My own Dad's holy sanctuary. The job site was crawling with my ghosts. Derek leaned against my truck, iPhone raised, snapping pictures of the logo Hartley Construction. The company Dad built, the one Linda swore I was stealing. Darren stood by the material pile, filming the crew, narrating, Evidence of the lifestyle Emily's trying to protect. I watched from the second-story window, trowel in hand, and felt that old familiar glass in my throat. Silent strength. Don't give them the satisfaction. My foreman, Marco, climbed the ladder. You want me to call the cops? No, I said, and my voice sounded like someone else's. Let them document. Let them fill their little phones with proof that I work for a living. But inside, I was shrinking. They'd already posted the photos on Facebook captioned, * living large while mom grieves. * the comments were a symphony of condemnation. * gold digger, manipulator, should be ashamed. * my phone started ringing old family friends, distant relatives, all asking why I'd stolen from a grieving widow. My boss pulled me aside. Maybe take a few days. There's talk. Marco tried to get me to take the rest of the day off. I refused. Work was the only thing that didn't feel like it was dissolving. But every time I came down the ladder, Derek was there, smirking, documenting the truck, for the court. Gotta show the judge what Dad's money bought you. The truck was 6 years old. I'd bought it myself, 3 years before Dad died. But facts had stopped mattering. That certified letter arrived the same morning. Pale envelope, red stamp, * contesting will on grounds of undue influence. Discovery begins Monday. * Linda's signature looped and perfect like a noose. I sat in my truck and read it 3 times, waiting for the panic to subside. It didn't. Instead, it calcified into something harder. Resolve. The letter said I'd have to produce financial records, email chains, proof of every conversation with Dad for the last 5 years. Linda was claiming I'd isolated him, controlled his medication, forged signatures. The woman who sat by his hospital bed for exactly 3 hours total was accusing me of abandonment. The irony tasted like copper, because I had a key. Not just any key. Dad's key. The one I'd found in his briefcase, the rusted brass labeled * basement 1987 *. The workshop he swore he'd never lock me out of. The place where, every Saturday of my childhood, I'd perch on a stool and sandwood while he told stories about Mom, how she'd designed their first house on a napkin. How she'd laughed when he nearly sawed his thumb off building her bookshelf. Linda called it his hoarder cave. After the wedding, she padlocked it. For safety, she said. All those power tools, but I knew. It was the one room she couldn't control, couldn't redecorate, couldn't erase Mom from. I spent Thursday night staring at that key, running my thumb over the worn letters. * basement 1987. * the year Mom died. The year Dad and I became a team of 2. Sometimes I think he kept that workshop exactly as it was, her blueprints still pinned to the corkboard, her coffee mug on the peg as a kind of memorial. Linda hated that most of all. She wanted to remodel it into a yoga studio. Dad had laughed in her face. The memory of his laughter was the only weapon I had left. I waited until Friday. Linda's standing appointment spa day, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The house would be empty. I parked 3 blocks away, walked through the neighbor's overgrown hedge like I used to at 16, and slipped through the side gate. The key still fit the back door. That felt like its own small miracle. The kitchen still smelled of Linda's vanilla candles and underlying decay. I moved fast, avoiding the creaky floorboard outside the master bedroom. Down the basement stairs, each step a prayer. I half expected an alarm, a tripwire, Derek's face on a security camera, but there was nothing. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd never come back. The basement stairs groaned under my boots. The air was thick with dust and painful memory. Then I saw it, ransacked. Dad's tools, his grandfather's chisels, his custom sawhorses scattered like bones. The desk drawers yanked out, contents dumped. Linda had been here, or sent her sons. They'd taken his files, his computer, the photo albums I'd left in his bottom drawer. They thought they'd erased him. Even his signature smell sawdust and motor oil was buried under chemical lemon cleaner. My chest tightened. I was too late. They'd stripped it bare. But then I saw the lumber rack, the one he built into the north wall. The third plank from the left still had that tiny notch I'd carved at 12, trying to imitate his dovetail joints. I pressed it. The false panel popped. Behind it, a floor safe. Rusted, rectangular, Utterly forgotten. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the key twice. Heard it ping against the concrete, felt the seconds ticking like bombs. Linda would be home soon. Derek might circle back. I was trespassing in my own father's house. My breath came in short gasps. Each tick of my watch was a countdown. I could see the headlines already forming. Asterisk daughter charged with breaking and entering. Asterisk Linda would love that. She'd finally have proof I was the villain. But the key was warm from my palm, and the safe was cold and different steel. It felt like the moment before a jump from a high dive terror and inevitability mixed together. The key slid in. The safe door groaned open like a confession. I flinched at the sound, half expecting Derek's boots to thunder down the stairs, but the house stayed silent. Inside, no gold bars, no stacks of hush money. Just a manila folder, a leather journal, a USB drive, and a life insurance envelope. My chest tightened. This was either the proof that would save me or the paperwork that would bury me deeper. I grabbed the folder first. My fingers left sweat smudges on Dad's initials penned in the corner in his perfect architect's script. Layer 1. A will. Not the copy Linda had waved around, but the original notarized 6 months before he died. My eyes caught the percentages before I could breathe. 80% to me, 20% to Linda. And there, at the bottom, a clause in Dad's shaky final handwriting. Asterisk should any beneficiary contest this will. Their share is forfeit, redistributed to the remaining heir. Asterisk he'd known. He'd written her greed into the document itself. My phone buzzed. Derek again. Asterisk got your paperwork ready for Monday? Discovery's gonna be fun. Asterisk I didn't answer. I never answered. Silent strength is a blade you hold until the right moment. But my hands were shaking so badly I dropped the journal. It landed open, spine cracked, and I saw Mom's name on the first page. Not Linda's mom's, Diane, the entry read, dated 2 years ago. Emily's mother would have known what to do. Linda's been asking odd questions about the company accounts again. Wants to know why we keep so much liquid. I told her it's for payroll, she smiled. I don't trust that smile. Page after page, Dad had documented it all. The meetings he wasn't invited to. The consultants Derek brought in who never sent reports. The $200,000 that vanished from the business line of credit in 3 transfers labeled miscellaneous operating expense. Dad had circled them in red ink. Asterisk SC Holdings. Asterisk Linda's maiden name. I was sobbing by page 12. Not delicate tears, but the kind that come from your ribs, from the place where you've been holding a scream for months. He'd been alone with this. While I was working job sites, swallowing glass, he was upstairs in his hospice bed, writing proof for a daughter who'd almost believed his love was the illness. The USB drive felt warm, alive. I plugged it into my laptop with hands that didn't feel like mine. Dad's gaunt face filled the screen-hollow cheeks, oxygen cannula, but his eyes were clear. Not confused, furious. If you're watching this, I'm gone and she's trying to take what's yours. His voice was paper-thin, but his words were steel. I didn't have the heart to throw her out while I was alive. She made me comfortable. But I have proof. He held up bank statements, the same ones I'd just seen. Then he leaned close to the camera, and I could see the old dad, the one who taught me to measure twice. Emily, you were never the mistake. She was. Fight her. The video ended. I sat in the dust in the dark, his face frozen on my screen, and I laughed. It came out like a sob, like a prayer. He hadn't been confused. He'd been protecting me from beyond the grave. Layer 4, the life insurance policy. $2 million. Sole beneficiary. Emily Hartley. Linda thought it was joint. She'd been planning to use it to maintain the lifestyle Dad wanted for her. I'd been planning to survive. I sat there, surrounded by his ghosts, and something in me shifted. Not a crack, a weld. The kind that makes you stronger where you were broken. By sunrise, I had 3 copies of everything, a digital backup in a safety deposit box, and a plan forming that tasted like copper and justice. Dad hadn't just left me money, he'd left me armor. And I was finally ready to wear it. The paper slid across my mother's coffee table like a snake. Sterling Linda's lawyer. All aftershave and moral flexibility tapped the signature line with a Mont Blanc pen that probably cost more than my truck payment. Sign here, Emily, 50% to Linda, and this all goes away. No depositions, no discovery. No dragging your ex-husband into court to testify about your emotional instability. Linda sat across from me, flanked by her church group 3 women who'd never liked me, their faces set in holy judgment. My Aunt Cheryl was tucked in the corner, twisting her wedding ring until her knuckle went white. Derek and Darren leaned against the mantel, arms crossed, smirking like wolves who'd already tasted blood. The mediator, a soft-spoken woman named Patrice, kept her eyes carefully neutral, but I saw the tilt of her head. She'd already decided I was the problem. I didn't touch the pen. Didn't look at the papers. My hands were clasped in my lap, fingernails digging into my palms so hard I could feel the skin break. Silent strength. Don't give them the satisfaction. Linda cleared her throat. We all know what Robert would have wanted. Her voice took on that theatrical quaver she'd perfected at Dad's funeral. He was so confused at the end. So vulnerable. Emily kept the nurses from me. Wouldn't let me see his private papers. She dabbed at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. A wife should be able to care for her husband. The church women murmured agreement. Mrs. Gable, who'd known me since I was in diapers, fixed me with a stare that could melt steel. You should be ashamed, young lady. I was. Ashamed of letting it get this far. Ashamed of every time I'd swallowed glass and smiled. Ashamed that I'd ever believed Dad's love needed proof. Sterling nudged the papers closer. Last chance, Emily. Sign, or we depose your co-workers. How many of them saw you yelling at your father? We subpoena your therapist. What did you tell her about your resentment? We call your ex-husband to the stand. He'll testify about your controlling nature. My ex-husband, who'd left because I worked too much, because Dad needed me, because I wasn't soft enough.
He'd testify if they paid him. They probably already had.
The mediator finally looked at me. Emily, do you have anything to say? I had everything to say. But I learned that words are weapons you load in private. So I just reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop. The case was battered, covered in construction dust and old stickers. Dad's initials were scratched into the corner. He'd given it to me for my 35th birthday. For the business, he'd said. Keep your records straight. Linda's smile faltered. What are you doing? I stood, legs trembling so hard I thought I'd fall, and walked to the TV, connected the HDMI cable. The screen flickered to life. Emily, this is highly irregular, Sterling began. I hit play. Dad's gaunt face filled the 80-inch screen. Oxygen cannula still in his nose, but his eyes were clear and sharp as they'd ever been. If you're watching this, I'm gone and Linda's trying to take what's yours. His voice, weak but unmistakable, boomed through the surround sound speakers he'd installed for Mom's movie nights. She's been draining accounts. I've documented everything. I clicked to the next file. Bank statements projected on the wall, each one showing Linda's transfers to SC Holdings, 40,000, 60,000, 20,000. Red circles around every one. Dad's handwriting in the margins. Asterisk Linda's personal account. Asterisk. The church women went rigid. Mrs. Gable's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Sterling stood. This is clearly manipulated footage. Robert was cognitively impaired. I laid the original will on the coffee table. The notary stamp was bright red, dated 6 months before his death. The clause about forfeiture was highlighted in yellow. Read the part about contesting, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Not anymore. Darren lunged for it. Derek grabbed his arm, but Linda was faster. She snatched the will, screaming, "This is forged." She tricked him. He was senile. I held up the life insurance declaration. $2 million. Sole beneficiary, Emily Hartley. You thought it was joint, I said quietly. You told the funeral director you'd be using it to maintain the lifestyle Robert wanted for you. Her face went white, then purple. The transformation was almost beautiful. All that marble composure shattering like cheap tile. Sterling was packing his briefcase. Mrs. Hartley, I need to speak with you privately, but I wasn't done. The silence had gone from weapon to armor, and I was finally wearing it properly. I've already sent copies of everything to the DA's Financial Crimes Unit. They'll be here by 3, the room exploded. Derek bolted for the door. Darren yelled something about his lawyer. My Aunt Cheryl started crying, not for Linda but for me. Great heaving sobs that said asterisk I should have believed you. Asterisk Linda stood there, the will crumpling in her fist, and for the first time since she'd entered our lives, she had nothing to say. No quaver, no performance. Just the raw, panic stare of a woman who built her whole world on a lie and watched it collapse in 11 minutes. The mediator, Patrice, quietly closed her notebook and slipped out the front door. I stood in the center of my mother's living room, surrounded by the wreckage of Linda's theater, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Solid ground. Dad's laptop was warm in my hands. The video had ended, leaving just his frozen face on the screen, that half smirk he always got when he'd outsmarted a subcontractor. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. But the real ending came 3 weeks later. The workshop smelled like sawdust and old memory. I was clamping a piece of pine to Dad's bench, the one he'd debuilt with Mom's blueprints pinned underneath the varnish, when my phone lit up, an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Text from Assistant Da Martinez. Linda Hartley formally charged with elder financial abuse and wire fraud. Arraignment Thursday. I read it 3 times. It felt like a weather report, partly cloudy, chance of consequences. Derek and Darren were already in Nevada. I'd tracked their flight, some cheap red-eye to Reno, the kind you book when you're not coming back. They'd emptied their apartments, quit via text, vanished like smoke. Linda's church friends scrubbed Facebook tags. My Aunt Cheryl sent a novel-length apology text at 2 a.m. Asterisk I should have believed you. Scared of her. So sorry. Asterisk I hadn't replied. Silent strength means knowing when silence is the only weapon. The money hit my account on a Tuesday. 2 million, liquid, legal, mine. I stared at the balance on my phone screen, 7 figures. I'd never wanted to earn this way and felt nothing. The numbers were cold. They didn't smell like sawdust. They didn't have Dad's handwriting in the margins. Because the real inheritance was lying open on the workbench next to my sandpaper. Dad's journal. Page 47, where he'd written, Asterisk Emily came by today. Sanded the bookshelf I started for her mother. She still hums while she works. Diane used to do that. Asterisk page 89. Asterisk Linda asked about the safe again. I played dumb. She thinks I'm confused. Let her think it. Asterisk his belief in me, inked into leather, was worth more than any bank balance. I used part of the money to convert the workshop into a tribute gallery. Mom's blueprints framed on the wall, Dad's tools mounted like art. The safe itself, empty, now turned into a display case for his glasses and his favorite pencil. The rest went into a foundation, Hartley Legacy. We help daughters fighting for their father's truths. We pay for forensics. We cover legal retainers. We make sure no one else has to dig through a basement to prove they were loved. Yesterday, a 17-year-old girl emailed me. Her stepmother had locked her out of her dad's house. She was living in her car, working double shifts, saving for a lawyer. I sent her a check and a copy of Dad's journal entry about humming. She replied, Asterisk I thought I was crazy. Thank you for making me feel real. I sit here now sanding the final piece for Mom's bookshelf, the one Dad never finished. Sawdust swirls in the afternoon light, and I swear I can hear his voice in the grains. Asterisk you were never the mistake, kiddo. She was. Asterisk the garage door is open. The neighbors can probably see me, let them see. Let them watch a woman who stopped being a villain and became a legacy. If you've ever been the villain in a story you didn't write, if you've ever had to dig for proof that you mattered, subscribe to my channel. I've got more to tell.